All right. What is up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of Lifting, Running, and Living with your favorite coaches, Kelly.
Hello.
Hey, and JK. That is me. We are kicking off episode number 32. So, per the usual, let's kick things off with updates on what we've got going on. So, Kelly, what's up with you these days?
So one of my updates is just an update on the lifting program that I mentioned last time that I had started. And for the most part, I like it. I'm still figuring out how many days a week I want to do and which workouts. If people didn't listen last episode, I almost said last week, but that wasn't last week. Basically, the program that I'm doing, she has like 12 weeks of workouts, and within each week, there's a lower body workout, upper body, full body power, full body functional training, and then 2 run specific. So there's a lot of options. So I'm just figuring out which ones do I like to do. I'm drawn more towards the full body ones just because, as we've talked about for the past year, I usually do full body workouts because I like to do 2 times a week. Last week, was it last week? I think it was last week. I did 3. No, it was 2 weeks ago. It was right after we recorded, I think. I did 3 times, and that was way too much. I was so dead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was also, there were other things going on. Like I have a normal running week, so I didn't change anything running wise. So it's like more on top of that. And then that weekend, Ty had a Saturday baseball game and a Sunday baseball game. And it was during the time where here in Denver, we had it was like mid to upper 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like 2 days back to back of sitting in the sun for 4 hours, plus 3 days of lifting, plus 6 days of running. And then that Monday and Tuesday of the following week, I just felt dead. So, yeah. And then the next week I did 2 days, and that was better. So this week I'm also doing 2 days. Wednesday, Saturday seems to be a good split for me right now. So just figuring out, learning a lot. But I'm realizing that I have to be careful of when I put the lifting day because I'm someone who has 2-day DOMS, so delayed onset muscle soreness. Yeah. So whatever I'm doing 2 days from the lift is usually harder than before.
Okay.
Yeah. So I like the Wednesday because my Friday runs are usually one of my shorter ones for the week, and I usually don't do anything else with it.
That's a good call.
I want to climb. Yeah.
Now, when you say you're dying, what are some of the signs for you that understanding that dying is potentially a bit dramatic, and also dramatic. What are some of the signs to you that you're potentially not recovering well from? I'm phrasing it as not recovering well, and then you can tell me if I'm on track or off track on that.
I think it is a recovery thing because I felt like I couldn't fully recover from all of that plus the weekend, and I suspect with the 2 baseball games, sitting in the heat for that long really messes with my hydration and my appetite. So I think I was underhydrated, underfueled on top of all of that. So Monday and Tuesday, I had a headache all day and I just felt super tired. And then Tuesday, I usually do my speed workout for running, and I tried it that morning and I ended up cutting the last rep short because it just it felt so much harder than it should. And it was almost like I felt kind of short of breath, but I don't know. It was yeah, which kind of gave me COVID vibes, but that was the only day I felt like that. So
yikes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have it right now, which kind of freaked me out. But then Wednesday, the next day, I felt like a new human. So I was pretty convinced it wasn't sickness. It was I think just a lag of the past weekend and just being behind on eating and hydrating. Probably hydrating was a big one just because of the heat.
That's kind of what I'm sussing out from what you've talked about. I'm curious, are you also looking at making some adjustments to your fueling and just overall nutrition then to support potentially building back up to 3 days?
I don't know if I want to build back up to 3 days, just
Okay.
because the scheduling gets tricky. Because the week I did 3 days, I did Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday.
Hmm.
So then Tuesday was fine. Um, Tuesdays are can be hit or miss because I usually feel most tired on Tuesday because we usually record on Tuesday for those who don't know, and then I have a weekly meeting on Tuesdays, and then I also sometimes have calls. So like
Yeah.
Tuesdays are more of my I'm talking to people and expending energy days. So I don't always like lifting that evening versus like Wednesdays. I don't usually have any calls, so it's nice. Um, but then like lifting on Sunday, I think was one of the things. This is where like the 2 day DOMS came in because then
Hmm.
Tuesday, my speed workout is 2 days after that Sunday lift. So it just like gets a lot trickier with three
Yeah.
days. But potentially I might play around with it more once I get used to the 2 day split and like doing that consistently. But I think just being, well, one baseball season's coming to an end. So
Okay.
that will change my weekends. But just being more cognizant of fueling and hydrating over the weekend. Because I feel like for me, it tends to get harder because there's not the structure of the weekly days. Like I'm not sitting at my desk all day, you know. I'm like usually out doing things or whatnot.
Makes sense. And then
Mm-hmm.
my last question is, how are you feeling about the exercise selection, like that sort of a thing, with the program itself?
Yeah, so for the most part, I like it, but she does. There's an assumption that you have a gym, which for the most
Okay.
part, I have most things in the gym, but like she really likes cable machine exercises, which is hard to
Mhm.
replicate in a home gym. Like I've been using bands as a substitute, but like as you know, they're kind of hard to progress once
Yeah, I
you,
think we may have even talked about that in one of our previous episodes. Are you saying so?
yeah.
You're saying with that particular program, does it have what the subs would be for the cable movements
Mm,
built in to the
I
program?
haven't seen them,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean they're there.
Right.
Like they
Yeah, I
might
gotcha.
be, yeah, they might be in like the PDF that she supplies, but like not in the app itself.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay.
so, but those have been fine because it's mostly like either a core move like wood choppers, which like that's fine with the band,
Right.
um, or like a rotational row kind of thing, which like
Mhm.
right now that's fine because I don't do much of my upper body unless I'm climbing.
Yeah.
Um, and then she'll put in like leg press, which is kind of annoying because that's like very specific. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I can always do like a squat, some kind of squat to substitute. But I've mostly, if it's like a leg press, I'll skip it just because she puts a kind of a lot of exercises, or it feels like a lot of exercises within one workout.
Okay.
And then within a workout, she doesn't include the warm up. So like she has a separate section for warm ups, but then her workouts usually are like 60 minutes without the warm up. So like skipping the leg press, I'm like, okay, that's fine because I
Okay.
don't really need to do more than an hour. Um,
Yeah. So it's probably shaken out to, I would, my guess is that it probably shakes out to about an hour 15 ish, like about 60 to 75 minutes, I'm guessing, for
yeah, if I
full
like
out.
if I do my proper warm up, yeah, which
Yeah. Yeah. Which that's about standard. What I've observed is about standard for programs similar to like her genre is pretty much what I've seen. And then when folks like in her genre typically will do an at-home workout, it's like ridiculously short.
oh,
Where it's and when I say at home,
like
what
body
I've
weight.
observed, yeah, what I've observed is it'll be mostly, yeah, primarily. How do I? It's weird. It'll be like, okay, this is a gym workout, and then this is an at-home workout, and so the gym workout
Mm,
is long or longer. So it's like in the 60 to 70-minute range, or let's say 50 to 70, just kind of depending. And
mm-hmm,
then the home workout is, it's like such a drastic difference in assuming
mm-hmm.
that you literally have like nothing. So it's all
Yeah.
body weight and resistance bands. And it's just interesting to me sometimes to see programs like that where there's no in between. Like to so from my point of view, like when I put out a program, because I'm actually this week, and I'll get to this in my updates, like I'm putting out a new training cycle for the pop training program. And I initially start with, if somebody's working out at home with resistance bands and dumbbells. So I start with that as like basically the middle, and then scale it up to, and I'm not saying scale up from difficulty. I'm saying scale up to as far as amount of assortment of equipment. So for example, it would be like starting with like a 2 dumbbell suitcase squat. And then I'm assuming, okay, somebody may have also a barbell and rack available. So we go to back squat, and then somebody may have access to a leg press. So then we go to leg press. And then if you don't have like even dumbbells, then we've got like a resistance band squat where you can put the resistance band, anchor it around your feet and then your shoulders, like that sort of a thing. So I'm always like intrigued sometimes when I hear about like different programs where it's kind of like, okay, at home basically means like, all right, you have a bag of kitty litter and 2 cans of green beans. Let's do it, you know?
Yeah.
Which totally gives COVID vibes, because I was definitely, I remember writing programs for clients who had like literally nothing. So we were getting super creative with gallons of water and a big bag of like pet food and a kid's toy chest, and doing all sorts of for some sort of a bench or step up or whatnot. We got real creative for a while, but anyway, it's not to hijack here. It's just when you start talking programming, that's my jam. So
I think for this program, like when you're on her site, I want to say this one says like it assumes you have a gym, because there's not really, I haven't seen anything that doesn't use a dumbbell, barbell, cable machine in her program selection.
I mean, I would say too, and this could potentially even be a future like rundown topic too. It's that idea of asking the question like, can I make progress at home? And it's like, yeah, you can make progress at home. It's just at some point you may outgrow the weights you have at home. If when you say at home is the same 2 pairs of dumbbells that you've had for 3 to 4 years, like that sort of a thing. Like that's always been an interesting one that's evolved for me with having conversations with people over the years, where they're like, well, does this program work at home? Like, depends on what's at home. So help me understand what we're talking about here. Yeah, because some people, it's like their home gym is better than most commercial gyms. It's just the disparity between the two is crazy.
Yeah. I will say I'm one of those people, I haven't bought more dumbbells in a while. I have a pair of 20s and a pair of 25s. I found a pair of 6s the other day.
From like at your house?
Yeah, in our basement. Yeah. From like, it must have been when I first moved out to Denver and lived in an apartment by myself. Yeah.
6s.
6s, yeah. But those actually have been really good for doing a lot of lateral raises.
I was going to say it's got to be lateral raises.
Yeah, because I don't have 10s. And then I have like the 5-pound change plates, which is what I was using. And I was like, oh, 6s I can use. But she is, 6s. I know. I don't know where they came from.
Yeah, I'm trying to even think the last time I saw a pair of 6 pounds.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they had to have come from like Target or Walmart.
Yeah.
Probably Target, because
are there those all rubber ones?
Yep.
Totally know what you're talking about. I think I might have a pair. I don't know if they're 6s. I don't even think they have a label on them. I picked them up at Goodwill like in 2020 when I was trying to scrounge like any equipment I could find.
Yeah. I think mine came in 2012, literally when I moved here.
That's funny.
Yeah. But one thing that she likes to do, which I personally hate, but sometimes we got to do things we hate. And I know you hate this too in your personal lifting. There has only been one instance where the rep range has been less than 10. And it is quite a change.
Hell no, miss me with that. Nope.
Yeah. So if people follow me on Instagram, they probably saw, I think it was last weekend's workout. she made me do Bulgarian split squats, 14 on each side,
Yeah.
which is just, yeah. I had
Insert
one.
that song. Hell no to the no,
Yeah,
no.
I saw
Nope.
it. Okay, so the way that she does like right and left side, it's either she'll put like the number of sets and she wants you to do both sides per set. So like if it's 3 sets, you'll see 6 circles to fill out. So like 3 for left side, 3 for right side.
Okay.
And then more commonly she'll call it 4 sets, but each time you do a set, it's a different side. So it ends up being 2 sets per side. So I saw that was one of those where it was like 4 sets and I saw 14 and I was like, great, 7 per side. That's fine. I can do that.
Yeah.
And then I read it and it was like 2 each side, 14 each side. And I was like, why? This is so many Bulgarian split squats.
That is absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
Absolutely brutal.
Yeah. And I was talking to one of my friends responded to my story who is a climber and he lifts a lot. And he was like, I forget what he said, but he basically was like asking about how much weight I added. And I was like, bro, I added no weight to that. Like, I am not used to doing
we're talking
that
body
many.
weight, homie. That is body weight. That's body weight.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I was like, I am self-aware enough to know that I'm going to be sore just from doing 14 on each side. I do not need to make it any worse yet. So that's been interesting, forcing myself to do more reps.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
especially
right.
for like plyometrics.
Yeah.
So going well, all in all.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
What else is going on?
The only other update I have really is about Ty. So like I mentioned, we've been having baseball weekends.
Yeah.
And last weekend was the quarterfinal, so they started playoffs, and they played this team. They played the prior weekend and they lost by like 5. So going into last weekend, I was like, this is it. It's gonna be the last game. We're gonna get beat pretty bad. But they won by kind of a lot. And Ty actually had the game winning out. It was so exciting. He plays catcher for anyone who's not aware. And it was like the batter hit it deep right field, and then right field just like launched it to home because there was someone, I can't remember if he was on first or second. I'm guessing it was first, but he's really fast. And he was rounding home, and then the ball got to Ty, and the guy was like gonna slide, and then at the last minute he realized he couldn't slide because he was gonna slide into Ty, who then had the ball. So he tried to jump over him, and then Ty like it was like an aerial kind of, but not really.
Oh, snap.
So he got the tag right before he hit home, which is very exciting.
Dang.
Because they were the away team, so like they did not get to hit last. So the last out is really important.
Nice.
So that they didn't get to keep hitting. Yeah, very exciting.
So dramatic.
It was. He has the video on his Instagram. I think it's on his Tyrell B. Spoofin' one. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Put the highlights.
Yeah. So
YouTube that puppy.
I know. This weekend they have semis, and then tonight we're recording this on Thursday, the 15th. He has the All-Star game because he was nominated for that. So.
Oh, snap. Man, this league is like, they got their stuff together.
Yeah.
So somewhat, like I'm sure there's some stuff behind the scenes. You're like, yo, this is a hot mess, but I like that there's different levels to kind of engage in and some things to kind of keep them going. That's pretty sweet. That's cool.
Yeah. It's been very exciting. I have enjoyed spectating.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah, so that's really all I got going on. What about you?
All right. Well, from a life standpoint, let's see, we're recording this on Thursday. So Thursday the 15th, we're recording. So last week around this time, we left on Friday to head to Alabama for move-in for Ava. So she has officially matriculated to University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. So she kicked off her freshman year. So we drove down to Birmingham. For those who've listened to the podcast, I think you would then remember, because I've been there a few times this year. My parents live in Birmingham, which is about From where they are, it's about 70, 75 miles from Bama campus. So we drove down on Friday, stayed there Friday and Saturday, and then her move-in was Sunday afternoon. So we drove a couple of vehicles, so 2 carloads of stuff for move-in on Sunday. So Emily, my wife, and I drove her up there with her stuff, got her moved in for the most part on Sunday night. Then we headed back to my parents' house, left her there like she was moved in and ready to roll. And then we went back up on Monday and brought my parents up to the campus just so they could see her room and, that sort of a stuff. Take her out to one, I was going to say one last family dinner or lunch, but it's not like it's intended to be the last one. It's just, one little event.
Yeah.
And then, she's there. Class starts next week. Yeah, class starts next week. So she enrolled in what I'll call like an early onboarding program where you get a few days where they do some activities, and you get to, it's an opportunity for freshmen to be able to meet other people, and things like that. Yeah. So the advantage of that obviously is, one, you get to meet different people, and especially with as much of an out-of-state population as they have. I don't know the exact percentage. I'm assuming if I really cared, I could look it up. And also just in chatting with different people, and then also with knowing some other families who have kids that are going to University of Alabama who are not from the state of Alabama, there's a decent out-of-state representation there. Yeah. So I think that's a great opportunity. And then also with doing that program, she had the opportunity to move in early too. So that program actually started this morning. It's like a 2.5 day program, I think. So that program started this morning. So she had a couple of days to, just chill and check out campus, check out what surrounds it. And they already had activities, like knowing that they were already going to have kids on campus. They already had like activities at night that were school sponsored. And then fraternity and sorority rush was already going on. Like they moved those folks in early for those that are interested.
I have heard.
Yeah, I know. Bama Rush is like,
Bama Rush.
I think it's a whole brand. Yeah. She and I actually watched that documentary together.
That document, did we ever talk about that? Because it kind of sucked.
We have not. I mean, we can chat about it now if you want to, because I didn't think it sucked.
Really?
But yeah, why did you think it sucked though?
I didn't like how the director inserted herself.
Oh, okay.
Like the documentary wasn't about her.
Interesting. Okay. So that's one of the things that you did not like about it. You felt like she should have just kept her perspective out of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I'm the opposite, shockingly, because I think it helped, from my point of view, I think it helped to provide some context, especially with some of the unexpected storylines in the documentary itself. So specifically, some of the storylines, which I didn't really know a whole lot about the documentary going into it at all. Ava had mentioned it before, and I think it's on Max, right? Was it on Max or Amazon Prime?
It was on Max, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So she had mentioned it, and it was probably maybe about a month and a half or so ago. We were just both hanging out in the living room, and I was like, let's check it out, I guess, because we were just chatting about like what was coming up events wise and whatnot. So we popped it on, and I was expecting it was going to be more of like a poppy, like entertainment driven kind of thing, I didn't think, I mean, straight up, not having any sort of, I didn't read a summary of it. I expected that there was going to be absolutely like zero substance to the whole thing. I mean, I'm being straight
That's
up.
Fair.
Like I didn't expect there to be any sort of actual like substance to it. So I was, I was somewhat surprised that it had substance. to
Mm.
it. So I think the storylines that were included about, certain people feeling somewhat disconnected from the process or feeling ostracized or whatnot, like I was pretty much expecting that was going to be the case, like based on just how Greek life in
Yeah.
most cases is stereotyped, and then especially Greek life in the South is
Mm-hmm.
stereotyped. And then having been on that campus before, and then having spent time at Michigan State, which is a Big Ten school, and being part of the Greek
Mm.
community, like I totally get where that stereotype comes from. Um, but I thought it went deeper. I would say it went deeper than I had thought it would. So I thought that her including
Hmm.
her perspective was helpful, because to me it put her bias out there
Mm.
for from
Yeah,
my
I can
point of
see
view.
that.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of like getting ahead of the argument if somebody were like in somebody within the Greek life community there were to say, well, this is, the reason that she presented these particular things is because she wasn't accepted, or she feels this way about herself, or whatever. She basically just put it all
Mm-hmm.
out there ahead of time. Like, well, yes, and this
Hmm.
is part of what my experience was. So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think
I get where you're coming from, though.
I felt like it took up too much time
That is totally fair.
because I feel it's been a while. I watched it when it first came out, so my memory could be incorrect because it's been a long time. But I just remember like the whole second half seemed to revolve around her and her experience, but like I wasn't
Hmm.
watching. I
Yeah,
was
I could.
watching for the Greek life drama, you know.
Yeah, you were likely going for more reality show,
Um, I was
more
going
like Rush
for
Talk.
docu series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that possibly from the vibe that I'm getting is you were expecting it to be like an extended version of what you see on TikTok about Bama Rush.
Kind of. I'm not really on
Uh,
that side of TikTok. I've seen a couple of them, but
well, neither am I.
yeah, fair.
Neither am
That
I.
is how I heard about the documentary,
My
though.
daughter just kept me updated on kind of what was going on, because that's one of the
That's
questions
fair.
that comes up. Like, well, is she gonna join a sorority or not join a sorority? Like, to my knowledge, no. And
Yeah.
every day is a new experience, so you never know.
Yeah, you
All
never
right,
know.
so yeah, we did the whole move-in thing, and then came back a couple of days ago, and now just getting into the groove of re-engaging a household with one child in it instead of two, which is going to be interesting. So Mace is
Yeah.
getting into his 7th grade year. So here that's considered the second year of junior high. I know in some places junior high
Mm.
is 7th, 8th. So he's getting into that. And actually, the day that we're recording was his first day of
Oh,
school. So we're just right back in the mix. Um, and the last thing I'll say just about moving, I will definitely give shout out to University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, because the move-in process, even though I had been given a heads up from friends that I have who already had moved their kids in last year, so their kids are sophomores, or one's a sophomore, I think the other one's a junior, and I had heard how the process would go from start to finish. When I say flawless, I mean like, whoa.
really?
They Yeah, like I knew what to expect, and also I also expect things to go wrong, and
Yeah.
I truly don't mean that from a negative standpoint. I think anybody who's spent a decent amount of time with me understands that I don't expect problems from a place of negativity. It's just one of
Yeah.
those, like, I don't get super let down if something goes wrong. I'm just like, okay, that thing went wrong. Life be lifing, so let's move to the next thing. They unloaded, so we had two vehicles, and they had both vehicles unloaded into these big rolling carts, and that was done within 5 minutes. They had both vehicles unloaded into these rolling carts, and then what they do, the student gets out of the vehicle. um, there's helpers. They hired a third party company along with, it seems like, student volunteers and maybe organizations. But you
Hmm.
pull up at your designated time. So you pull up at your
Whoa.
designated time. They unload. That was done within 5 minutes. They direct you. as the drivers, they then direct you to a not off-site parking lot. It's still on campus, but a commuter parking lot. So we go to the commuter parking lot. Ava is going with her stuff. So we go to the commuter parking lot. There's a shuttle bus that picks you up from the commuter parking lot and brings you back to the dorm. We get back to the dorm. We go up to Ava's room. All of the carts have been unloaded and all the product is inside. And then it's our turn to start moving, unpacking, building, all that stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, when I say they had it like on lock, they had it on lock. So
that's wild.
Shout out University of Alabama Tuscaloosa. Clearly not their first time doing this. Yeah. Now, granted, it was during the early move-in period, which is different than the general move-in, and also they got it. I was highly impressed with their efficiency. That was wild. Yeah. I was like, I wonder if they used to work at Chick-fil-A, because the only thing I've seen move smoother is the Chick-fil-A drive-through line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only place where you pull up and you see 50 people in line and you're still not worried about it. You're like, oh,
no.
They got me.
Like, this will be very quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you just know that they're still going to get you squared away. Whereas like some other places you pull up, you see 3 people in line. You're like, let me go ahead and let them know I'm going to be late. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Anyways, all right. So that was that's that update. And then somewhat related to that, during the travel for last week, and it went into this week, this is what my coach and I are using as what we call a reset week. Also can be considered a deload week. So I want to say I'm about the 8th-ish week of the training program that I've been doing, that he's designed for me. So with this particular week, we took it a bit differently than previous reset weeks. So with previous reset weeks, what we've done is I'll scale back on either it'll be volume and or intensity. So say if I've got 6 particular movements, I typically still like to do all of the movements in the program. What I would do then is, instead of say 3 sets plus like a drop set or something like that, I would do 2 hard sets. So still do all the movements, but bring down the volume and or the intensity. So say if it were, and the way that it's worked out has typically been, it's been right around the time that I'm traveling, usually to Alabama. So what we've done also before is, he's like, hey, if you've got, ample time to be able to train, then, you go through all the movements, but if you want to dial the intensity back on all the movements, then cool. So there's a lot of flexibility. What we did this time is I went off program completely and utilized, instead of really looking at that program, I am utilizing, so still going through, because that'll end at the end of this week, just using the time to really work through some movements for the new pop program that I'm releasing next week, playing around with some things there. I also, I texted you about, I'm going to do an episode about functional training. So I've been playing around with that a little bit, just really keeping it super flexible and keeping the intensity pretty moderate. There's a couple movements that I've gone a little bit heavier on. For the most part, though, like, it's really been a focus on like just feeling good about moving, and then also like just exploring, doing a ton of exploring. So it's been a really fun week. And also what's been different for me is it's been a fun week, and I'm not feeling like, man, I really wish I could go back to doing this, like doing nothing but functional training, or I wish this was a bigger percentage of my training, or anything like that. It's been a nice shift temporarily. And I'm looking forward to returning to what I've primarily doing, which is primarily a bodybuilding type style, like, and more of a hypertrophy focus versus a functional movement focus. And again, I'll get into that in a future episode, or we may even chat about it on here in a future episode. I know we talked about that. So yeah. So that's what's going on. And then within the next few days, we'll decide when this cut is going to start. So I'm going to go into a fat loss phase for some period of time. So yeah, those are the updates on what's going on my end.
Cool. I was going to ask if you had decided what's next, but you just answered that. So you think you're going to start a cut before your birthday again?
That's the part that we'll suss out, like what makes the most sense. Because my birthday, so let's see, today's the 15th, so my birthday is on the 30th. So 2
weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah. So we'll decide.
Episode 33 will come out on your birthday.
Yeah, stay tuned, people. Stay tuned to figure out what did I decide. Man, if that's not the teaser of all teasers. It'll exclusively be released on this podcast for the one person that cares. Hey, Mom. No, my mom doesn't listen to the podcast. Anyways. No, your mom does. Maybe your mom will care. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. She hasn't mentioned our podcast in a while. I think she's got too many backlogs, you know.
That's fair. That's okay. As long as she stays subscribed, we're good.
She better be subscribed. I subscribed her, so I don't think she knows how to unsubscribe.
You know, like low key, that would actually be really a really kind of a on the DL way to increase your follows, like, or increase your listenership. Just like when you're with your friends, like, hey, can I borrow your phone for a second real quick? And then you just go into their Spotify and just subscribe to your podcast, go into Apple Podcasts, subscribe.
Yeah.
And just be like, oh yeah, I was just trying to check something, and then hand it back to them. So you just randomly start doing that. Just subscribing to your podcast on other people's phones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if it's someone who I guess it doesn't matter much for the metrics we get. I was going to say someone who isn't really a podcast person, because they would never know. But you still get the downloads, but where we host it, they don't count downloads, they count listens. So.
Listens. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Or plays, whatever.
All right. Well, those are my updates.
Cool.
All right. Want to transition into the main topic here?
Yeah. I'm just looking at the time, and for the listeners, before we started, JK was like, we're going to do an hour, and we're already at 40 minutes, and we haven't even started
what we're going to talk about. An hour.
Yeah, okay.
Today we're talking... My stuff's not going to be that deep for the main topic, though.
Oh, gosh, I don't even know what I'm going to say, deep. So.
Okay. Well, I noticed neither of us had the breakdancing on here, so.
I didn't watch. I've only seen clips of Ray Gun.
You can cover that on your podcast. That whole situation is about to get wild.
Oh, yeah. I've just seen more details getting leaked, which I didn't look into if they're true or not. But
yeah, that's where I think
wild.
That's where I think the Olympics stuff. So, spoiler alert, transitioning to the next topic. We're going to talk, we're going to share a couple of our favorite highlights from the most recent 2024 Olympics in Paris, France. So, what I was about to say is it's always interesting to me how there's the event and the initial headline or highlight and initial controversy. Yeah. And then when the investigative reporting really starts, and then they really start to dig in, that's when if you really like the messy, you just got to sit back and chill for usually I'd say a couple of months. Within a couple of months, you find out there was a reporter who had already been working on a story 6 months before. That's the thing that I think is wild. Somebody will be like, yeah, actually I started searching Ray Gun. I've been following her actually since she first did her dissertation for her PhD. I just made that up. And secretly on the low, they've been following this whole thing the entire time. There's always some crazy story like that. So I'm going to give it a couple of months to get the backstory, something like that. It'll be her ex-husband speaks out or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. So Olympic highlights. You want to just go back and forth? You share Your
Yeah.
one, I share mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All
Well,
right.
first, since we were talking about breaking is what they call it.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
did hear it will not be in the LA 2028 Olympics. So sorry for anyone who really enjoyed watching it. It
Yeah.
is ousted. So who knows about what is the next one? 2032? Is that right? Yeah.
Oh, after 2028 in LA?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that
2032
would
is the
be
next
it.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
TBD. Okay, so we have narrowed down our highlights to two, which if you're an avid Olympics watcher, this was a very challenging task to complete.
Can you guys hear how salty she is at me? So, just to give you a behind the scenes, I presented the idea of going over Olympics highlights. Kelly, essentially, from my perspective, won't speak it as fact, from my perspective, was like, hey, basically, cool and strap in because this is going to be a long one. And I was like, well, just narrow it down to a couple. And yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, the way I had to do it is in my notes app, I had to list out every single thing I was excited about that happened in the Olympics. And
Oh
it's
my
a list of like
gosh.
20 things.
Wow, you're very excited about this. All right. Well, tune into MFA, folks, because that's probably where she's going to go over it.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I'm not really excited on MFA right now.
Or maybe we'll do a part two. Who knows? Okay.
Who knows?
All right. So what's highlight one for you then?
Okay, so I had to include sport climbing is one of my highlights. So the women's final in particular. So for anyone who is not aware, the Olympics just started having climbing in as of Tokyo. And in Tokyo, the format was it's a combined format, and you had to do each of the three disciplines: speed climbing, bouldering, lead climbing.
Yeah.
And for those not familiar with climbing, speed climbing is a very different discipline than boulder and lead. So it was like very unfair to the speed specialists because they basically had no chance to podium because they're not good at boulder and lead. And then the boulder and lead climbers had to learn speed climbing for the Olympics essentially when like they don't do that ever. And speed climbing is essentially sprinting up the wall. And then bouldering is more like problem solving, and lead is like endurance. So like if we're comparing it to running, it's like having to do a 100-meter dash and also having to do a 5K. And those just don't mix. So then this year, what? You don't like my comparison?
No.
Okay.
I'm just being petty.
Do you know climbing better than I do?
Nope.
Yeah,
Not at all.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think in my amateur analysis
Yeah.
is comparing the 100 to the, well, this is all semantics, but I don't know. Let's spice things up a little bit here, people.
Okay, go for it.
Well, I think comparing the 100-meter to the, say, like 5,000 meter or whatever, I think it's a little different because in the two posts that I looked at about speed climbing, literally two posts, the drama seems to be that the speed climbing is basically on like a bungee cord and you have like tons of assistance.
You have no
correct?
assistance. No.
For speed climbing where they're up there in like
climbing.
5 seconds. Oh, it seemed okay.
It's an auto belay. So like someone doesn't have to be holding the other end of the rope. It's just an automated, when you fall, it just like carries you back down. Versus like in lead climbing, there's another person feeding you the rope as you get up higher and higher. They don't have that for speed. It's just a device that does it for you. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not like pulling you up.
No support whatsoever?
Shouldn't be.
It's weird. Okay. I'm slightly impressed.
Yeah.
Slightly.
I mean, it's very impressive because like, especially at the speed at which they
look
do
like
it.
Freak shows getting up there that fast.
Yeah, they're like spider monkeys.
Yeah.
Yeah, the men, they just broke the world record. I think it's now like 4 seconds and 94 hundredths of a second.
That's
and
wild.
The women's world record, I think, is a little higher than 6 seconds.
Okay.
Which
All
is
right, I'll go sit back. I'll go take my seat now.
But like if we're comparing like the types of athletes, like explosive athletes are speed and then more endurance athletes are lead. efforts.
Okay.
So similar to
Fair.
the 100 versus the 5,000.
All right. I've taken my seat now.
Okay. So this year, speed climbing is its own discipline, which is great because then the speed specialists can really have their highlights and compete against each other. And then boulder and lead are still combined, but those two go better together. People still want it to be like 3 separate disciplines, but that's a discussion for a different format. So then in Tokyo, there is one climber from the US, Brooke Raboutou, who, like, for anyone who doesn't know, every year I watch the whole World Cup climbing circuit, which starts in like April, goes to like September. In Olympic years, I watch the Olympics, obviously. And then I think it's every other year, similar to like track and field, there's a world championships. So I watch climbing comps all the time. So I've been watching Brooke for years, the like years leading up to Tokyo, and then now leading up to Paris. But in Tokyo, she made it to the finals. So only 8 climbers make it to the finals. And then she did pretty well in the bouldering round and speed. Well, I think actually speed, she made some mistakes, but like that was whatever. So lead climbing is the last discipline. And the way they do the scoring, you don't know the scores until everyone's climbed, because they essentially take the score from each discipline and multiply it. So you can imagine like one person's score changing affects everyone else's. Yeah, so it's kind of chaotic, but going into like lead, no one knew essentially like what she needed to do to get a medal. But then on the route, she was like climbing really well. And there are these holds there's friction on one side and then just like no friction on the other side. They're called dual tech holds. And she had her foot on one and she just slipped really low, which was really unfortunate. It was so sad because she essentially like missed out on a chance at a medal just because she had a foot slip, but it wasn't like she wasn't tired. She wouldn't have fallen there otherwise. So then going into this year, I really wanted her to do well just because I feel like she is a really good climber, and not that like anyone deserves a medal, but it was kind of like redemption from Tokyo. So she made it to the finals. And then the way that they do scoring now is a little more clear. It's still kind of convoluted, but you can get up to 100 points for boulder and up to 100 points for lead. And then they add them together. So it's a lot easier to see, like, for us as spectators, like what someone needs to do in order to get to the podium. And she was coming out, I think it was 3rd from last. So there were only 2 other climbers to go after her. So you knew like which hold she needed to get to in order to podium, and she passed it. And then like as soon as she fell, she knew and just like started sobbing. And then the first place climber, Yanya, they are just like such good friends. And then she just like celebrated her gold with her, and they were just crying together. And it was just a really exciting finals and really special moment.
Dang.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's still on Peacock. I've heard that they're removing the Olympics content kind of fast, but I would recommend watching it. Yeah. I don't know. Can't confirm. I haven't looked. I tried to watch everything live if I could. Climbing was not one of those. It was like 2 a.m.
That's interesting. I wonder if the content will be available on YouTube.
I would hope so. It's got to be available somewhere.
Yeah, that's interesting, especially with the number of people who likely signed up for Peacock just to get the Olympics and then plan to cancel.
I know.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but it was really exciting. And I feel like, sometimes in the Olympics or competitions, you feel like the people that are the best don't end up on the podium. But I feel like in this final, that is what happened. So Brooke got silver. Yanya got gold. If anyone doesn't know Yanya, she's like one of the best climbers that we've ever seen on the comp circuit. And then Jessie Pills got bronze, and she was also like bawling as soon as she realized she got a medal, just because she's been comp climbing for like over a decade, which is a really long time in climbing. So
wow.
Yeah, it was just like very exciting and also very emotional, which I think was cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I like the fact that it exposed a sport that, or the Olympics in general, I think will expose some different sports that people don't necessarily pay attention to. So
Yeah, I will say that the setters are trying to figure it out, it seems like, but they're trying to figure out like what is exciting for spectators who don't know climbing versus
Yeah.
what is a good test for the climbers, because like they've been adding a lot more dynamic movements like jumping from hold to hold, which is a very different
Mm.
skill than like how hard can you climb, or like how quickly can you figure out how to climb this, because they have limited time for each boulder or route. But yeah, it's interesting because they had a lot of dynamic movement this year, and that's like kind of a very specific skill, and it's either like you can figure it out or you can't, or like you have the explosiveness or you don't. So I'm
Gotcha.
hoping they don't fully turn into like parkour for everything. But I
Yeah,
imagine
it's
it'll.
almost like that they hopefully they don't like over sensationalize the sport or kind
Yeah.
of water it down in order to make it more flashy,
Uh-huh.
so to
Yeah,
speak.
because I
But yeah.
mean, speed climbing is already exciting for its explosiveness, so we don't like need an explosive component on every single boulder. And then that does become unfair for,
Mm,
because like not every competitor is explosive, and then obviously you've got height differences, so like the taller climbers, they don't need to be as explosive. So then
yeah.
it's like you need to balance that out in some way and get like, you can't always make a boulder super fair for everyone, but since you have 4 boulders, you can make, one lean easier for a taller climber and one lean easier for a shorter climber, kind of thing.
Interesting. It's the first time in my life I've been part of a climbing conversation. So there we go.
First time for everything.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna be a basic dude, and my first highlight of the two was the finish of the men's 400-meter run. So that was basic dude.
I think
Um,
basic dude would choose the 100.
oh, you think?
Yeah,
Okay. All
I
right.
do.
Well, that's fair. Well, yeah. Well,
I
clearly
mean,
I'm
to be
picking like
fair,
a
this is in my list of highlights. It just wasn't
yeah.
one of my chosen ones.
Yeah. So for me, massive, massive highlight was Quincy Williams' finish, the men's
Yeah.
400-meter final. Absolutely nuts. Like I get goosebumps just thinking about it. And I screen grabbed the race too, like did a screenshot or whatever
Yeah. Screen
from
record.
YouTube, just so I could watch it whenever I wanted to. Yeah, screen record, just so I could watch it whenever I want to, because that finish was insane. From starting, and it appeared to pretty much anyone who had vision and or anyone who could hear the commentators
Yeah.
that about what I'd say about 200 meters in, no shot,
Yep.
like no shot. I think he was in lane 8, if I remember correctly. I think he
I
was,
want to
yeah.
say he might have
Was
been. Yeah. Yeah. He was either
uh,
in 7 or 8.
hold on, we'll fact check this. What
I
lane
think his last
was?
name is Wilson too, not Williams.
I'm sorry, yeah, Wilson, yeah.
Is it Wilson?
No, wait, wait,
Or is
wait,
it
wait, wait.
Quincy Hall? There's 2 Quincy's. One is the 16-year-old and one is the not 16-year-old. I think Quincy Wilson is the 16-year-old.
Yeah,
Quincy
I'm
Hall
sorry.
is the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was front of mine too because I just saw his post this morning. It's an
Okay.
old
Yeah. Yeah.
post, but this
Yeah.
post
Because he got
post
a
this morning.
medal.
Yeah, that's a whole different storyline too, with
Yeah.
the haters who are like, "How did he get a medal?" Or why did he get a medal?
Um, Before you continue, I have learned that uh, the Olympics bring out all the people who don't know the rules to anything, who then think they're experts and comment on everything. This was
This
highlighted
is
in the 100-meter finish.
yeah. So this is true from my perspective. This is true of every single sport, every
Oh yeah,
sport. Even myself, when you started talking about climbing, I had no idea what I was talking about, right?
that's true. Yeah.
Howbeiver, as my grandfather used to say, I spoke so confidently about my completely uneducated opinion. So I'm just, I'm just saying, this is completely. normal and accepted, not
Yeah.
right, but normal and accepted human behavior to speak confidently about something that you have no business even talking, and you need to go sit
Yeah.
it back down. So anyways, yes, sorry, I mixed up the two. So Quincy Hall, what lane? I can't type right now. Anyways, I know he was in one of the outside lanes, and from the, I haven't run track since 95 or 96.
Okay.
Okay. So like in a competitive race, and it was only competitive because it was actually like an event, like a high school event. I'm not saying that I was competitive in any way, shape, or form. I do recall though, that from my perspective, it was harder to pace and understand where your competition was when I was on the outside lane. So as you're running like that curve, it's just really, everybody's behind you. So if you are someone like these athletes are, who has the capability of pacing and then figuring out, okay, strategically, when do I need to turn it on? When do I not need to turn it on? It becomes much more difficult in the outside lanes because you don't have visibility necessarily to everyone. So factor that in. Then 200 meters in, even one of the commentators is basically just like, yeah, he's cooked. Like, she didn't say that, but she was just like, he's failing. Like, he's totally struggling.
Look cooked.
And he looked totally cooked. And then, I mean, when you talk about like gut check appeared to leave literally nothing on the table and form out the window. Like the dude was just like, that was just like dig deep. I mean, his facial expression, everything.
The head tilted back.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
the flailing arms.
Yeah. Like, you remember how last week you were talking about your assumed ghost, or last episode, the assumed ghost, right? I was like, there needs to be an investigation on if there was some sort of spirit. But yeah, there was something going on, because
something took over his body.
Yeah. Like that was a gut check. Mm-hmm. And in one of the posts on Instagram, there was somebody who was like a college track athlete who made this comment like, I will never quit on anything ever again in my entire life after watching that. Because it was just so impressive. To me, that was just really impressive, just to see what appeared to be someone who was literally like, I am going to will myself to this finish line. And then to listen to the interview with his brother afterwards. So there was an interview with a reporter who was inside of one of the family homes. So this is back in the States. So the brother and a bunch of family members are watching. And afterwards, the brother is just like, you know, he's talking about, this is for so-and-so, this is for coach so-and-so, this is for so-and-so. Like, you start to get like true, like in the moment, at least some periphery understanding of how much sacrifice is put in to that particular moment. And the thing that like really impresses me about really any of these athletes, and more specifically like sprinters, and this is one of the reasons that I personally have like a ton of respect for bodybuilders, male, female bodybuilders, like bikini, like everybody, because the amount of work that's put in for a moment that's going to be anywhere from, 10, 11 seconds for 100-meter sprint to sometimes, like for bodybuilding and bikini athletes, like they're on stage for maybe 90 seconds, maybe total. And you're talking about months, years of work to put it all on the line for like that one moment. Like, to me, that's what makes these moments even more impressive. And regardless of like what their backstory is and whatnot, like, I don't actually my second update may be kind of hypocritical to this. And also, I don't do a ton of research on like the person's backstory and are they a good person or not a good person or whatnot. Like in this particular event, I'm just looking at like the performance itself. And that was like, that's the definition of a gut check performance. Like that was wild. That was absolutely wild because that dude like literally threw himself across. I don't know how he did that. I'm gonna go and watch it again.
I don't think you mentioned he won gold.
Yes. Oh, yes. By the way, yeah, he won gold. I'm just assuming at this point everybody's heard the storylines.
That's true. I don't know. I've made that assumption, and not everyone
about the track and field stuff.
I don't know. I feel like track. This might be an incorrect assumption, and I don't know what I'm basing this on, but I feel like there tends to be like the people who watch the sprints, the people who watch the distance, and then there's like the true track nerds who watch everything.
Yeah, I could see that. So for me, that was that like when we first decided this would be a topic, that was the first one that came to mind for me, just because I was just like, that is insane. So that's mine. Yeah,
that was
all right.
A wild performance.
Yeah. All right. And what's your second one?
Okay, my second one. I also have an honorary mention one that I need to say at the end.
Okay.
It came to mind. I didn't write it down. My second one.
Me saying too. Yeah.
It's so hard to choose, especially for the U.S. had a very good track and field.
I didn't say they didn't.
Week. A lot of exciting races. But my second one has actually nothing to do with us. But Sifan Hassan, she runs for the Netherlands. She was competing in the 5,000, the 10,000, and the marathon, which is an unheard of triple to do at the Olympics.
Holy cow.
Yeah. For those familiar, like training for a 5,000 is quite different than training for a marathon.
Yeah.
And
a little bit.
I think what was more surprising, because like if you're training for a flat marathon, that's more similar, I feel like, to training for the 5,000, 10,000 on the track. Because in both of those, or all three of those, you want to just be like really fast. And then obviously a marathon, you want to be able to run for that long. But the Paris marathon course, very hilly. I think there was like 1,000 feet of gain across the whole thing, which is a lot for a road marathon. So it's like kind of wild to train for a hilly marathon and a track 5,000 and 10,000. So everyone was not sure how this was going to go. In the 5,000, she won bronze. And then in the 10,000, she won bronze, which she's competed, I want to say in Tokyo, she medaled in those two events. So that might be wrong, so forgive me, people. But she is very good on the track. So that wasn't like super surprising. And then in the marathon, it came down to a sprint finish, and she hip checked another runner and it ended up winning by like 3 seconds. So she won gold in the marathon and bronze in the 5,000 and the 10,000, all within the span of like 6 days, which my mind can't comprehend it.
That's baller.
It's insane. Yeah. So that had to go on my highlights.
Now you got me intrigued with the hip checks.
Oh yeah, you should watch that clip, because they're like,
check that out.
I want to say, so Sifan Hassan was running like close to the barrier where the spectators are, and they were doing, I think, a left-hand turn. So she's like more on the tangents, and then I think the other runner was trying to run the tangents, and then they had to do like a right-hand turn. So I think they just collided. And then actually second place said that if Sifan had not pushed her, that she would have won, which I think is a very bold thing to say after you lost. Be like, if I wasn't pushed, I would have won. But
now I'm just going to wait for the highlight where they put ludicrous move, get out the way behind. I just need somebody to do that. Somebody create a TikTok for that, please.
It's got to be out there.
Somebody clip it and send it to us, please.
Yeah.
Like whoever it was that one time you were throwing up gang signs at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bank account.
I was just counting on my fingers.
Yeah. Anyways, that's a legit moment. Okay.
Yeah,
I
that
like
was
that.
insane.
I'll check that out. Okay.
Yeah, you should.
All right. And then my last one is overall the performance of Simone Biles. And I was mentioning in my ramble about Quincy Hall, how like I didn't do a bunch of research in the backstory and things like that. With Simone Biles, I didn't really need to do a whole lot of research, just
Yeah.
based on what my algorithm shows me. And then also with having a daughter who has done gymnastics in the past, also she coaches at a gymnastics facility here, or did at least before she went off to school. And Ava got a chance to be at whichever gymnastics competition it was at. I don't remember what level it was at where Simone Biles actually competed in St. Louis. So Ava got a chance to go
That's so
check that out, and
cool.
she was like, I think she was in the elevator. I was just about to say elevator. I don't know why I just thought about an elephant. She was in the elevator with Simone Biles' family, and I think Jonathan Owens was like 2 feet behind her or something like that, if I remember correctly, like her
Whoa.
husband.
Yeah.
Just overall, just incredibly just proud and impressed of her overall effort and result and resolve, knowing some of just the absolutely like asinine stuff that was said when she made that decision to withdraw in 2020, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
technically 2021, but yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah, you're
Tokyo
right.
Games.
Yeah, the Tokyo Games, making that decision to withdraw and citing mental health concerns as a factor in that, just knowing or being aware of at least the volume of people who publicly basically criticized that the reason for the decision, like publicly criticized the reason for that particular decision. And then what also factored into that too is, if I strongly recommend that people watch the special on Netflix, which I think there's still
Yes.
more episodes coming out. I think it's called Rising, if I remember
Yeah, I think
correctly.
Simone Biles Rising.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I had seen that it was in the in the feed or the lineup or whatever. And Ava was actually the one. I asked her like, "Hey, have you watched it or whatnot?" Or I went in her room one night and she was watching it. And I was like, "Oh, what do you think about it? Like, do you recommend watching it or not or whatnot?" And she was like, "I definitely recommend watching it." She's a fan anyway, but she's like, "I
Yeah.
definitely recommend watching it. Especially, I would like to recommend that people who felt like she was a quitter or had anything negative to say," she's like, "just the everyday person who doesn't actually know someone who's struggled with their mental health, she's like, I just hope that they watch it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm not in that camp, and also I'm gonna watch it
Yeah.
anyway." So just knowing that particular story and all of the news and stuff around that and all of the people with their opinions going into it, and then just watching her just be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do my thing. Not really worried about you," and just
Yeah.
completely like cement her place in history as potentially the greatest of all time. I mean, when you've got movements
Yeah.
that are named after you, like, you might be that woman. You might be that one. You know what I mean? So, yeah, just knowing that whole story, I think that was absolutely fantastic. Because the whole I was going to say redemption story, and I'm going to be very transparent. It doesn't even necessarily feel right to call it redemption, because in my opinion, like, I don't think that she failed or anything like that. So I don't know
Yeah.
of a better way to put it. I think it's just,
It's like a comeback tour.
yeah, I mean, come back from a performance standpoint, and also, again, like, as transparently as I want to be, I struggle sometimes to when you take into account like a mental health aspect of things, to call something a comeback, like a comeback from that. So I'm
Yeah.
saying like a comeback from the performance aspect of things versus like a comeback from a mental health issue. And whether I'm right, wrong, or somewhere in between. I'm just trying to communicate it as the person that I am and the father of a daughter who may or may not listen to this, like that's just one of those things where I'm just kind of like, but I just think that, I'd be very interested. I haven't taken the time to do this. I'd be very interested to hear the analysis of the people who so easily spoke out about how she was like a letdown. There was, let me see if I can find this, because I think I had jotted this down. Even, it was Piers Morgan who had said that she should tough it out instead of withdrawing. And there was that. And then there's this guy, which, for those that typically tend to be more like liberal leaning, then they're going to discount like Charlie Kirk anyway. Like if anybody's familiar with Charlie Kirk, like he's more on the extreme side of the conservative movement.
Okay.
And I remember I had to look this up to make sure that I wasn't totally misquoting, but he called her, and this is a quote, a selfish sociopath.
Wow.
And said she was essentially, to paraphrase, accused her of betraying her teammates and the country. Yeah. And even, I don't have I didn't look up the exact quote, but even like our current candidate for vice president, JD Vance, even spoke out publicly about, from my perspective, what he really talked about was from what I remember, and I could be misremembering this, the way that I took it is he was saying that he thought it was kind of disappointing that the media was utilizing the story of her stepping away to prioritize her mental health as something that was a strong decision to make.
Oh.
So it's kind of like in my opinion, like he was criticizing the decision without criticizing the decision.
Yeah.
So it's, instead of just directly saying like, I think, I don't think that that's something that should be celebrated. It's like, let me cook up a little word salad for you. And I'm just going to say that I'm disappointed that we're making this the story of like a hero.
Yeah.
That sort of a thing. So those things definitely, for me and me alone, those things factored into being like really, really proud of that particular result. Because basically she was just like, yeah, I'm that. So, yeah.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed her clapping back on social media to some people. Some of her haters.
Yeah, for real.
I can't remember the exact quote, but it was the one, I'm sure that you've come across it and people listening have probably heard, where she was like talking about, it might be in that documentary actually on Netflix, where she's talking about how like people hate on her, but they can't even do a cartwheel.
That's, I mean, one, she is correct. she is absolutely correct. And also, like at the end of the day, like, I don't know, you use whatever bullet you've got. And it's basically like when you're on that level, people, there's like a very small percentage of people where the criticism would actually, like, that should even really be in your atmosphere. Not that I'm telling her like, it's like, it's like me criticizing, like, I don't know, Ronnie Coleman, who's like one of the best bodybuilders in the world, who could like squat 800 pounds, Yeah. It's like, all right, dude. Like, okay. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. Like, I don't know. It's just like, you're not even a gnat in my atmosphere. Like, what is your deal? So anyways, all right, you said you had an honorable mention one.
Oh yeah, I mean, we have to mention this. It's iconic. Sha'carri,
if you're about to talk about
4x1.
breaking, oh, okay. I was like, if you're talking about the breaking thing,
no, not breaking. I'm talking about Sha'carri in the finals of the women's 4x100 when she is running and just looks over to see how far ahead she is. and then just keeps going to win gold. It was one of the best things I've ever seen in track and field, I think.
Yeah,
Like,
for real.
Yeah, especially because the cameras are on that side, so she essentially looked over at the cameras, but she was looking at her competitors.
Yeah, the edits when they slow it down and they put like the like the music behind it, and it's just like the look over, like, what are you doing? And then just keep on going. It's like the look, yeah, it's like the look that you give somebody when they were trying to cut you off on the highway.
Yeah,
and then you catch up to them and you look over like, what were you thinking?
You feel stupid.
and then you just zoom on by. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Legit. Yeah, that's somebody else who basically, like, her performance was an entire clapback at everybody who criticized.
That's the one I'm curious about. I don't know if you heard about for the 100 that her and Shelly couldn't get into the warm-up area because they were on separate.
Shelly Ann Fraser Price? Is that her name?
Yeah. Because they were not on like the team buses. I'm really curious, like, what the truth of what happened there was, because I've heard so many things. Like, they couldn't warm up; they had to walk for an hour.
Right.
And then, like, I mean, Sha'carri's performance either way is really impressive, but I do wonder, like, what happened? How did it affect her going into that final?
Yes.
And I'm hoping we get to find out when they release the next set of episodes from Sprint on Netflix.
I have not watched that at all.
It's good. There were some criticisms from people. This was like a YouTube video I saw, so I don't know how prevalent this thought is, but I'm sure more people share it. From people who already like track, that it's like there's not enough running in it. There's not enough of them like doing workouts and running races. But personally, I feel like the point of Sprint was to draw more people in, and so like you get people interested in a sport by getting them interested in the people, not like showing
essentially
them 10 track races.
Essentially the same thing that you talked about from my perspective. It's the same thing that you talked about with trying to get people interested in the sport of climbing.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you understand, this is super relevant for me because I literally this morning was texting with a client about like understanding how to play the game. And when you understand what attracts people and marketing and how to draw people and engage people in, then you got to figure out how to play the game. You have to figure out how to play the game. And it's not even a slippery slope. It's just like, to me, it's just a constant, like, just trying to kind of figure it out. Like, okay, you got to play the game. And also what I'm not willing to do is like completely like bastardize what I do, or, you know, different things like that, like make track and field. I've already seen so many comments about like what especially female athletes are like, are they all supermodels or what's the deal? And all this other stuff. And I'm like, all right, you're like, well, you're watching now.
Yeah.
So now you're watching. And also now, then once you get eyes on the sport, I mean, this is human behavior. You first got to get the eye on the sport. And then once you get the eyes on the sport, then you start to dig into the detail and you start to show like all of these different things. But it's wild out there. Yeah. And I know you saw like that post that I just on Threads, I was like, I'm not going to let this one go, where somebody commented, you know, like about the bodies. It was a female, you know, just commented on like, after seeing some of the bodies of some of these female athletes, like, I hate running, but I'm about to start. And
we're assuming she was watching sprints. I'm assuming she was watching sprints.
Yeah, it's one thing. I don't know. There was something that for me that would hit a bit different because of working with so many people where they've been on like the cardio hamster wheel for so long, and they felt like, oh, well, I have to do this thing in order to look like that person, or look like I work out, or, you know, whatever the case may be. So I'm hopeful that as part of now potentially having an increased number of eyes on the sport, of females like in the sport, in the sports world, I should say, female athletes, like hopefully taking this momentum and then starting to not visualize, what's the word that I'm looking for, expose, or start to display more of what their actual training looks like. Like these women lift weights. Like that's the thing that's just like they lift weights, they train,
they don't
hard.
Run much.
Really?
Yeah. Gabby Thomas, she's the 200-meter gold medalist. She went on the Today Show and she was like, we run a mile once a year for like a mental check. And that's like the only time we run a mile.
And I was like, yeah, same girl. Me too.
Yeah. So like, I feel like that's the biggest disconnect. Cause like the person who posted on Threads, if they're going to start running, they're going to start like, I'm going to go out and run a 5K. It's like, that's not what they're doing. You got to go to the track. You got to be running fast. You got to be lifting. You're not running for endurance.
Yeah. And don't get it twisted for people that are listening to this. My response to that was not based on, oh, here we go again, another person thinking they need to run. When I read stuff like that, yeah, I know. When I read stuff like that, I hope that people understand that it's like the 3,000th time this year that somebody has made some sort of reference to, oh, I saw this snippet of this person who has a aesthetic that I think is desirable. And I saw this one fraction, like literal fraction of what they do. So I'm going to incorporate that fraction into my life. Because I for sure could easily see somebody who's just like, dude, it's not that big of a deal. It was just a comment said in jest. And also be around, like, especially for, I don't know what our breakdown is demographic wise or whatnot, but I don't know either. Especially for like, I'm speaking directly to men, like be around your daughters, your nieces, your younger sisters, like, especially if they're within like that teen-ish and then mid-20s, like pay attention. This is in the conversation.
Oh yeah.
Like pay attention. Like it still is, it blows my mind sometimes when I'm talking to another dad and I'll mention something within this realm and they're just like, oh, that really goes on? Girls talk about that? And I'm like, do you listen to what's happening, like, ever? And I'm not even talking about in social media. Like, do you listen in real life at all? And sometimes they're just like, oh, I don't know. Just like, oh my gosh. Okay, gotcha. I don't know. Because sometimes people think I'm quiet because I'm actually listening. I'm just kind of soaking it all in. So I don't know. That was my honorable mention. There you go.
I was wondering if we would talk about that thread.
Yeah, I had told you I wanted to talk about that anyway, so I forgot about that one. I will say though, to like, it's Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone.
Oh my God.
Holy cow, athlete. I mean, it felt like every time she got moving, like it was like, what's the point? Like, why is anybody else even on the track? Because I'm from like the FloJo days.
Yeah.
And that was, as the young folks say, it was giving FloJo. Because that's how I felt when Florence Griffith Joyner, for anybody who has no idea who I'm talking about, because I am completely dating myself, because that was like the late 80s, I think. Late 80s to early 90s. Yeah.
Something like that. I was
Go back. Just go back and look up FloJo, and just like when you talk about absolute domination, the whole conversation was basically like who's coming in like second to third. Yeah. There was, and that's, I mean, good Lord. Especially like in that 4x4, I was just like, "Whoa!"
Oh my gosh, I know. The 4x4 was wild.
Yeah, just like, good Lord. Yeah, and I sent you that article. Like, I found an old article an article from 2 years ago where she described her training. She was talking about power cleans. Yes. She was talking about lifting weights. PS, folks. So yes, lifting.
We need the explosiveness.
Yeah.
And the
That
power.
was just total domination, though. My goodness.
I
Yeah.
know. I've I always find it funny when she races and she like does very well
Yeah.
by all of our standards. And she's always like in the 400-meter hurdles, she was like, "Yeah, I wish I was a little faster." And you're like, "Girl, you broke your own world record." Like, I'm sure she's gunning for a sub 50 because that would just be absolutely insane with hurdles. But yeah. But I mean, that's what makes her great. She's always like, "Yeah, there's
Yeah.
more I can improve. I'm happy with this race, but."
Yeah. And she also, I mean, she puts it out, she puts her faith out there. She is
Mhm.
not like shy about it. Like she just, good Lord. It's just, that was, I mean, domination. That's the definition of like,
Yeah.
yeah, why are you on the track with me? I was just like, sheesh, this is insane. Yeah, I think my parents, we were at my parents' house when we were watching the replay of that,
Mhm.
and even my mom was just like, "Wait, why? Where's everybody else?" She was like, where are they?" I was like, my dad, like his mouth was just like, "What?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yo, I told you she was fast." Yeah,
She's so fast. I'll be
crazy.
curious if she continues with the hurdles or if she like eventually will switch back to the 400 because I know she did like a
Hmm.
season of doing the 400 to increase her speed, but I'm
Okay.
curious if like I think that was I don't remember if she did it for like a world championships or if it was just some track meets.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
like on the Olympic stage, I wonder if she'll go for the 400 because I feel like because her leg in the 4x400 was 47.
47 something, right?
Yeah, 47 something. I don't remember if it was low, mid, or high. Either way, 47 seconds is insane and would already beat a lot of people who ran the 400-meter final.
Yeah, and that was her
So,
last event, right?
yeah.
That's her last event. So she's already gone through both like qualifiers and her final events.
I think
And
they have
then,
qualifiers, semis, and finals for 400-meter
oh,
hurdle.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'm referring to the semis as qualifiers. So
I think they did have heats before semis.
again, me, the uneducated guy who has no
Well,
idea what
it
he's
does
talking about.
depend on the event because some of the track events have only semis and finals. Some only
Yeah.
have finals. The
Okay.
10,000 only has one race for kind of obvious reasons. But then like
Yeah.
the shorter sprints have the heats and then semis and then finals. Yeah,
All right. Well, that's our Olympic rundown.
I know. And there's
That
so
was
much we
fun.
still didn't talk about.
I know. I
So many
know.
things happened.
I, I know. All right. So with that, would you like to tell the folks all of
Where they can
the
find us.
all the places, all the things?
Yeah, if you don't already, follow us on Instagram at Lifting Running Living Pod. And you can email us at liftingrunnинglivingpod@gmail.com. You can share your favorite Olympic moments with us. We would love to read them. Oh, you can also comment on Spotify now if you listen.
Yes, that is right. And we're on YouTube too, right?
Yes, we are on YouTube.
On your channel,
But it is my coaching klutz YouTube. So
which is fine.
yeah. Just
It's all good.
if you search for Lifting Running Living, that is the title of the playlist. So
I've started to enjoy video podcasts where, so my setup is I've got like this, I've got my desktop and then I'll put a video podcast on my iPad just next to me
mm,
or like on the periphery. So
yeah.
as I'm working, it just kind of seems, it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like the equivalent of working like in a coffee shop or something like that, where you've got like,
Okay.
there's other people that are kind of there, but they're not really interrupting you,
Yeah.
sort of a thing. But we've talked about this before. I can get my work done completely fine with like having other voices and stuff around, like when I'm programming. I know for
Mm.
you that's like not necessarily as much of a thing, but
Yeah, it depends what I'm trying to do.
yeah, that's fair.
But I do like I tend to do CrossFit ones. I watch
CrossFit
them.
podcasts, video
Yeah,
podcasts,
cuz
you
I
mean?
like don't want to subscribe to a CrossFit podcast and listen to it every week, but like it's in my
Mm.
YouTube algorithm now, so I'll sometimes watch them when they pop
Which
up.
ones are
I'm
you
like
listening to?
um
Or what's one that you
Talking Fitness Elite,
talking
Talking Elite
talking elite
Fitness.
fitness? Yeah, Tommy Marquez and yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that one sometimes. I don't really do Sifan, but he pops up in my algorithm. Who else is there?
You listened to Joy and Claire's episode today?
Oh yeah.
Or wait, were you at the live recording?
No, because they do
Sunday?
it Sunday mornings, and
Yeah.
I'm running
Oh, okay.
now that it's hot.
Okay. I was gonna say, I know you used to.
Yeah, before it was,
Yeah.
90 degrees, and I had baseball games to go to.
Yeah. Well, they covered really the mental health aspect of the death of Lazar Dukic at the CrossFit Games, and I thought they did that very well. I was texting with Joy about that. I may likely share some thoughts on that, on Help Me Understand. I may tap my friend Terrence in. He's a box owner. I may bring him back in for that particular one. That's a tough one. So
yeah, that was a wild turn of events.
Yeah, very much so. All right. So with that, we are going to end this episode. So thank you again for listening to episode 32 of Lifting, Running, and Living. We sincerely appreciate it. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.
Goodbye.